The craziest thing happened. I was doing a role play assignment for my social work practice class, and these assignments require for us to role play with a student. We're actually conducting a therapy session with a patient. We're divided into two pairs. One of us is the therapist, one of us is the client. The instructions are that the person who is role playing as the client has to bring a real issue so that the person who is role playing as the therapist can actually have a real practice working through issues and discovery and listening to the client's problems, validating the client, practicing empathy, practicing active listening, and paraphrasing. These role play sessions are recorded and they're uploaded to our Canvas, and our class mentor and our professor has access to them to provide us feedback on being the therapist. It's kind of a high stakes assignment. It's worth a lot of points for our grade. And we only have 10 to 15 minutes to complete the role play session. Otherwise, we could be docked points. We came up with a physical cue to let each other know when we were approaching 10 minutes so that we could help each other stay within the time frame. So my physical cue was doing that with my nose to let my classmate know you're on 10 minutes. And hers was putting her hair behind her back. And just to remind you, we're practicing empathetic listening skills, active listening, validating, really learning how to listen to the client and understand emotions behind what they're saying, to look for ways to tap into the true feelings beneath the problems and help the client explore their feelings and their emotions, which requires real active listening skills. I was the client first, and my classmate came up on 10 minutes, and I went like this. Kept going. So I did it again, and then I kept doing it, and she kept going. So afterwards, when she ended the session, she went over the time. She went over 15 minutes. So I was like, "You went over by a lot." And she was like, "What?" She was like, "I noticed you weren't giving me the cue, so I just started wrapping it up when I felt like 15 minutes came." And I was like, "No, I gave the cue. I gave it so many times." And she was like, "I did not see you give the cue, not at all." And I said, "When you watch this tape back, you're going to see that I gave that cue. You're going to be like, whoa, how did I miss that?" And so I was thinking to myself, how in the world did she not see that cue? It was blowing my mind. I could not understand how she didn't catch. Mine was so obvious. And I literally sat there with my hand like this for a minute too, and she didn't catch it. So then we reversed roles, and then it was my turn to be the therapist and she's the client. I was actually watching my time. So I came up on 10 minutes and I ended it. And afterwards, I was like, "I didn't see you do a cue." So I was watching my time and I saw that I was at 10 minutes. She was like, "No, you ended it right when I did the cue." She's like, I was thinking that was crazy because as soon as I did the cue, you were like, "Oh, that's it." So you were serious about staying at 10 minutes. And I was like, "Oh no, I didn't see it." So I totally missed her cue. She was like, "I made it so obvious. I put my hair so obviously behind my back." I was so blown away that we both missed these cues. So I have been thinking about this last night, and I went and did some research. I'm like, how could we miss these really obvious cues while we're practicing active listening? And I found out some really interesting things that I want to share with you. Deep listening narrows perception. Non-judgmental listening reduces awareness of non-essential cues. When you're fully engaged in empathetic listening, your focus shifts entirely to the verbal and emotional content of what's being shared, rather than arbitrary movements. So there's research on this called cognitive load theory. Cognitive load theory is the theory that your brain filters out non-essential information and non-essential memory. And when you are concentrating on new information, your brain will automatically filter out information that it feels that your brain is coding as arbitrary or not relevant. So with this theory, since movement of the nose and the hair did not have anything to do with the emotional content or the reason for the active listening. Cognitive load theory being applied to this, my brain and my partner's brain totally filtered out those movements because it didn't give information pertaining to the emotional content. So that being said, if there was other body movements, someone going like this or crying or something that had to do with the emotional content of what was being spoken about, our brain might not have filtered out that information because we're looking for the emotional content and we're listening with empathy. So there's another theory called selective attention and inattentional blindness. This happens when we're so focused on one thing that we literally fail to see another thing. There was an experiment conducted on this theory called the invisible gorilla experiment. In 1999, Harvard University conducted an invisible gorilla experiment. What they did was they had the students dress up in, half the students dressed up in white shirts, half dressed up in black shirts. And they had this group of students pass a basketball back and forth to each other. Then there was another group of students who were the observers, and they were instructed to count how many times the people in the, I believe it was the people in the white shirts passed the ball. So they were looking for the people in the white shirts passing the ball. Over half of the students did not notice a person in a gorilla costume come between the group of people passing the ball back and forth and stand in front of the camera. They didn't see it at all. Over half. This study has also been reconducted in professional. One of the arenas was in radiology, and the radiologists were looking at scans for cancer. The results fared slightly better than the basketball study, but nearly half of the radiologists did not see the superimposed picture of a gorilla in the scan. Maybe this is why people suggest you go to other medical specialists that look for certain things, because while one medical professional may be looking for one thing, another person, they might miss other things that are not in place. What other areas in our life, especially going on right now, in the climate we're in now, where we may be focused on one thing and our brain is so focused that we're unintentionally blind to other things going on that are totally out of place? This can put us in dangerous situations. So it's something to kind of aware of. Divided attention is much harder than we think it is. Most people think that they're capable of multitasking, but the truth is, more times than not, when we think we're multitasking and our attention is divided, we could be missing things, and it often leads to decreased effectiveness in both areas. Shift to how this may show up in conversations that we have in our everyday lives. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you're really spilling your heart out? You're really like express your emotions and your feelings, and that person says something like, "Why do you keep fiddling with your hair? It makes you look so insecure." Or "Stop tapping on your knee," or arbitrary that you're doing with your body movements, and it makes you feel a little bit dismissed and invalidated, and you don't really quite understand why. You're like, why am I feeling this way? Am I being too sensitive? Your intuition is telling you that when someone is criticizing small gestures like fidgeting, not listening empathetically, they're engaging in judgmental observation instead. And that never feels good, especially when you're trying to connect with someone. Now, I'm not saying that every time that happens, this is the case. Some people are easily distracted by small movements. Deep listening shifts focus away from minor, non-meaningful movements. Some people are listening to understand, while some people are listening to analyze and make judgments. Being overly focused on someone's body movements when you're listening to them can make people feel unheard. And finally, inattentional blindness explains why sometimes we miss things. I have a question. Have you ever felt unheard because someone focused on your gestures rather than your words? And the other question is, have you ever totally missed something that was super obvious in your face because you were just so focused on something else? I'd like to know if any of you guys have had these experiences. And I hope this video helped in some way. All right, have a great day. Bye.